treasured in the genetic of sight, sound, taste, or even mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination. There's a signpost up ahead. Next stop, Jake Stevenson. Hi, long-haired freaky dude here, Jakey Steve, and today I'm going to review the wonderful Civil War novel, The Red Badge of Courage, by the American author Stephen Crane. When this classic of American literature was first published in 1894, it gained immediate recognition. The Civil War had since passed, and there were already many novels depicting the conflict, but something about this piece was special. It had a certain poeticness to it. The words flowed like sweet honey, creating a wonderful masterpiece of imagery. It was easy to picture and to feel everything going on. You could see the battlefield, hear the muskets, smell the smoke because it was all described so well. But he didn't just use adjectives. He used metaphors, similes, comparisons, personification. Many literary devices were used which kept the story fresh. In other words, it didn't get repetitive with its imagery. Also, some key descriptions are left out or are quite vague, but only in the right places, where it's better for you to come up with your own picture rather than to look at his. It worked out perfectly. Another thing which made this novel a huge success was that many veterans were baffled by how much this eerily resembles the real emotion and real actions of a man going to war and fighting in a battle. They claimed no book on the Civil War had matched it as perfectly as Stephen Crane did in The Red Badge of Courage. Hi, Mojo. But what makes it even more remarkable is that Crane didn't even fight in the war. He hadn't even been born during the time of the war. To think that this man, virgin to the conflict of war, could tell the tale better than those who experienced it firsthand. Before I proceed, I warn you, a few ever so minimal spoilers might be revealed, but none which would diminish the pleasure you yield while reading this book. You might be wondering what the plot of this book is and such, but to be honest, it isn't too much more than what I previously described. A man's conflict in battle, especially the emotional conflicts. While events within the battle build up to a plot and climax, I found more interest in the emotional development of the main character rather than the battle. My crave to know what sorts of decisions the protagonist would make and how the events of the war would affect these decisions outweighed those to find what would actually happen in the battle. It's a Catcher in the Rye of sorts in that respect, only much better. And it's a relatively short book, so it works out well. I'll refrain from telling you the name of the protagonist, as you will find, while the book is in third person, the narrator refuses to address characters by name, but rather by the use of epithets and adjectives. So, for instance, one character might be referred to simply as the tall soldier. Any names are found only through dialogue. The same concept applies to all proper nouns, pretty much, of the book, places, regiments, etc. I will tell you this, however. Your relationship with the protagonist is going to be a love-hate one. Very complex guy, but aren't we all? So here's a few non-spoiler quotes, which I particularly enjoyed. It was surprising that nature had gone on tranquilly, on with her golden process in the midst of so much devilment. Reminds me of a Ray Bradbury story, short story I read a while back. A rather humorous quote, he was but an ordinary squirrel, to doubtless no philosopher of his race. So enough of my bumbling. I'll let the book speak for itself by reading the first few lines or so of The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane. A must-read for any Civil War fanatic, American patriot, or simply an admirer of great books. Okay. Chapter 1 of The Red Badge of Courage. The cold passed reluctantly from the earth, and the retiring fogs revealed an army stretched out on the hills, resting. As the landscape changed from brown to green, the army awakened, and began to tremble with eagerness, as at the noise of rumors. It cast its eyes upon the roads, which were growing from long troughs of liquid mud to proper thoroughfares. A river, amber-tinted in the shadow of its banks, purled at the army's feet, and at night, when the stream had become of a sorrowful blackness, one could see across it the red, eye-like gleam of hostile campfires set in the low brows of distant hills. Once a certain tall soldier developed virtues and went resolutely to wash a shirt. He came flying back from a brook, waving his garment banner-like. He was swelled with a tale that he had heard from a reliable friend, who heard it from a truthful cavalryman, who had heard it from his trustworthy brother, one of the orderlies at division headquarters. He adopted the important air of a herald in red and gold. "We're going to move the Murrah, sure," he said pompously to a group in the company street. "We're going way up the river, cut across, and come around in behind 'em." To this attentive audience he drew a loud and elaborate plan of a very brilliant campaign. When he had finished, the blue-clothed man scattered into small argument groups between the rows of squat brown huts. A Negro teamster who had been dancing upon a cracker box with the hilariously encouragement of the 20 soldiers was deserted. He sat mournfully down. Smoke drifted lazily from a multitude of quaint chimneys. "It's a lie, that's all it is, a thundering lie," said another private loudly. His smooth face was flushed, and his hands were thrust sulkily into his trouser pockets. He took the matter as an affront to him. "I don't believe the derned old army is ever gonna move. We're set. I've got ready to move 8 times in the last 2 weeks, and we ain't moved yet." The tall soldier felt called upon to defend the truth of a rumor he himself had introduced. He and the loud one came near to fighting over it. So, yeah, that's part of the first chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. As you can see, there is some dialogue in this book. It's very good dialogue. That's one thing I believe I forgot to talk about. Keeps the accents pretty well. Keeps all the slang which you would have heard back then. Very believable. Very believable. And with that, thank you for watching Bibliophile Productions and NLZ Productions. This is Jakey Steve, and have a great day.